Odds are, if you watch any review for this movie, you're gonna hear two things. Fun action, bad story. That about sums up my feelings on Mortal Kombat as well. I thought the fighting scenes were great, but I truly thought the story was awful, and that's coming from someone who's a big fan of MK9 and the plot that game was able to present. I really thought that this Mortal Kombat movie was gonna blow people away with a coherent story. Nothing out of this world, but something that would actually make casual audiences care about these characters, but unfortunately, what was presented wasn't much better than the haphazard plot of Mortal Kombat Annihilation, but with less camp. In this video, I'm going to work through my thoughts on the latest Mortal Kombat movie and explain why I left the theater disappointed, although the movie wasn't horrible. I'm Dennis, and this is my watch list. So no one expected Mortal Kombat to be some Oscar-worthy story. Instead, from the trailers, the movie looked like it was embracing the chaotic violence of the games while focusing in on Scorpion and Sub-Zero's rivalry with the Mortal Kombat tournament as the backdrop for the action. I was really excited for this movie, especially after Godzilla vs. Kong, which I think did a phenomenal job at being a dumb fun action movie that knew what it was and didn't waste anyone's time with padding. Unfortunately, Mortal Kombat isn't handled as well as Godzilla vs. Kong, and the dumb fun and gratuitous violence is more rare than the trailers would have you expect. When the gore happens, it is glorious! But the movie just didn't know how to deliver when there was no intense fights on screen, and I think that's a damn shame. So, my girlfriend, who knows absolutely nothing about Mortal Kombat, actually somewhat enjoyed this movie, which means the movie did its job right, at least for the casual viewer, and that's honestly all franchises like this care about. They're trying to cast the widest net possible, and if they upset a fan or two along the way, it doesn't really matter. Although, it's not like she enjoyed the story, because no one on Earth possibly could have, but we both agreed that the fighting and gore were fun. A good deal of my complaints come from knowing the source material that the movie could have taken from, but the average person with a real functioning human brain doesn't know or care about any of that. Most people have no idea Mortal Kombat even has a story, so for them, this movie will probably be fun, but kinda forgettable besides the fights, which I guess is kinda what this movie was trying to be. Again, I'm not saying that Mortal Kombat has the best story in the world, it's not a character-driven drama, but there's actually a story, and it's halfway decent. At least decent enough to form an entertaining structure to provide reason for these characters to fight. This movie instead takes elements from the established Mortal Kombat story, twists them up, teases things, but never delivers on anything. The tournament doesn't even happen in this movie. Are you kidding me? I guess we live in a world of planned sequels before even knowing if the original movie succeeds, so here's hoping the next movie really steps it up, because this movie is more like an Elseworlds prequel to the games, rather than a movie based on the actual story of the games. And it's all focused in around a descendant of Scorpion, for some reason, who is also a terribly uninteresting character, portrayed by the worst actor in the whole movie, and let me try and keep this review on the rails. So there are good parts to this movie. The first half hour is fun and goofy, and the last 20 minutes are fun and violent. I think the actors are generally doing an okay job in their roles. No one was egregiously horrible, and the special effects for everyone's different abilities looks really good, particularly for Sub-Zero, who is essentially the big bad villain for this movie. He gets some really cool moments to show off his powers, and the movie presents him as being a totally brutal badass. The actors all look like they can actually fight too, especially the guy they got for Liu Kang, who is absolutely fucking shredded. The movie does have some humor in it that works, some more broad stuff, and some niche in-jokes for fans of the games too, like Kano trying to time his jump over Liu Kang's leg sweep. Been there many times myself. I don't think this movie is awful. I don't think it deserves its current critic score on Rotten Tomatoes, but I also don't think it's the movie fans have been waiting for, and the audience score isn't aligned with my feelings either. The biggest problem I have with this movie is the pacing. I just said that the first bit and last bit are somewhat entertaining, while the middle 45 minutes are fucking grueling to get through. The entire middle section is a nonsensical training arc that just pads out the runtime of the movie. The script relies heavily on Kano cracking jokes to fill in dialogue, and this is where his character also suffers the most from having to hold the whole movie on his back. I thought the entire training would be handled quickly or in some kind of montage and then get us over to the tournament that everyone just kept talking about, but no. Pretty much the rest of the movie just takes place in this bland underground temple, and the characters go around in circles, talking about their stupid fucking dragon markings and trying to unlock their superpowers through pain. The worst example of the pacing is towards the end of the movie when the temple gets invaded and everyone gets fucked up, because then all the good guys talk for 3 minutes and then go right back out and kick everyone's ass. It all happens so quick, and it's also really weird because somehow the whole evil team already split up to go do nondescript things for our heroes to catch them alone and kill them. Then the final showdown between Sub-Zero, Scorpion, and Cole Young takes place, and then the movie just ends. I'm gonna talk about the character of Cole Young in a second, but one other thing that these different battles revealed was how low budget this movie felt. It feels like the movie had 3 main locations: Cole's gym, Sonya's home, and the temple. In a way, it's almost like a Mortal Kombat game, since it feels like the characters are really limited to a handful of stages where they can fight. It just made the whole world feel a lot smaller. So, Cole Young. Honestly, he was the big question mark going into this movie. People will say, oh, you needed a normal guy to act as a vehicle for the audience to bring them into this crazy Mortal Kombat world. And to that I say, shut the fuck up. Liu Kang or Johnny Cage, who is utterly absent from this movie, could have been that character, or even Sonya or Jax. However, this movie decided to create Cole Young, and the only reason they did so had to be for marketing. His inclusion, it feels like it's from another time in Hollywood, where the film relies on its most marketable character in order to get the dumb audience invested. Cole Young is a washed-up MMA fighter who is also the descendant of Scorpion, Mortal Kombat's most marketable character. Does this relationship really inform Cole's character? No. Does this new character impact Scorpion's relationship to the Earthrealm fighters? No, because he's barely even in the fucking movie. So what benefit does Cole Young add? Nothing. There is a scene in the movie where Liu Kang is giving his backstory, and I think that would have been so much more interesting to see. I think watching Liu Kang being taken in by the temple as a child, and growing up and then going on a hardcore mission to stop a child sex trafficking ring where he also develops his abilities would have been an awesome first act for the movie, and then transition into the actual tournament for the second act where Liu can meet the rest of the cast. However, Liu Kang gets sidelined and we're stuck with Cole, and there are 3 things that we know about Cole Young. He is a washed-up MMA fighter, he has a family, and he is Scorpion's descendant. Outside of that, I couldn't tell you who he is. And that's pretty much a problem for everyone and everything in this movie. It's all sloppily presented. This movie gets into the habit of creating unnecessary plot devices that require valuable exposition time rather than using that time to flesh out its characters or the world they live in. The film introduced 2 core concepts which bog down the entire plot. One is the dragon markings, which serve as your invitation to fight in Mortal Kombat, and the second is that everyone needs a superpower or arcana in order to fight in Mortal Kombat. The movie insists on honing in on those 2 concepts, and everything else falls to the wayside. But even when it comes to the markings and the arcana, nothing is really explained except for the initial setup. Like, what the fuck is Jax's arcana? His robot arms suddenly just get bigger. Are we supposed to think that that is his inherent ability? Just upgrading robot arms? What if he didn't have those arms? What is even going on with Cole's powers? It seems like his armor absorbs kinetic energy that he can then use to power his own attacks, but then that never really happens again, and also he gets like random swords that grow out of his armor too. What the fuck is his deal? Why do Scorpion's descendants have the markings automatically? Why didn't Cole's daughter have the marking too? How was Sub-Zero brought into Shang Tsung's service? What was Cabal's beef with Kano, and why did he just drop it to convert Kano over to his side? Did all of these fights count as the tournament? Is the tournament gonna happen?
I don't know.
I know that this is a doofy clown show of a movie, but that doesn't mean it has to be written incomprehensibly. I was just hoping for better. Finally, just to further indulge my inner fanboy for a moment, I don't really like how this movie didn't have Scorpion in it at all, despite the marketing. I also think how he was handled was initially really promising and then extremely lazy. His appearance in the final fight kind of makes 0 sense and is a bit underwhelming. It's definitely fun, but they also just make him the hero of the story, and that makes the character lose all his nuance. Scorpion is my fave, and what makes him interesting to me is that he essentially made a deal with the devil for his justified revenge, so he's more morally gray, which again gets flipped on its head when he does kill the original Sub-Zero, and then Sub-Zero's brother takes over for him, which makes Scorpion's grudge against him less justified and the new Sub-Zero's vengeance more justified. However, because this movie makes Sub-Zero a servant of Shang Tsung's from over 500 years ago, I struggle to see how on earth they could possibly bring in his brother to take up the role. Maybe another descendant instead of his brother could, which would be a good foil for the new character, who is Scorpion's descendant, but then I feel that takes away from Scorpion's story. That's my problem with the new character. He kinda steps on Scorpion's character. I almost would have preferred if in the final fight the main guy became possessed for a second by Scorpion and was this movie's Scorpion. I don't know, he's just so bland and uninteresting, and I feel like his inclusion wasn't as well thought through as it should have been. As expected, I think a lot of the problems I have with this movie boil down to Cole. With all of that said, I don't think this is an awful, unwatchable movie. If you're in it for the blood and gore, watch it at home and just fast forward through the middle 45-minute training sequence until you get to the real fights. I'm gonna give Mortal Kombat a 3 out of 5 stars. It's not one I'll be revisiting anytime soon, but maybe I'll rewatch some fights online. Obviously, there's a sequel planned for this movie, so I'm hopeful that will be good and stick more to the source material, but this is all we've got for now, and I can't say it's any better than what we've gotten in the past. I'm curious on your thoughts. Did you like this movie? What's your opinion of Cole Young? And which was your favorite fight? Let me know all this down below, and if you like this video, you may also like these others on your screen now. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this, and until the next time, I'll shut up.